Guys, people have been asking for it, so this is my Kaalia Sneak Attack Vast deck. So, Kaalia does her thing. The first two cards we have are actually going to be replaced with a Mox Diamond and Mox Opal, or a Chrome Mox. So, those two are kind of irrelevant. So, first up we have our basics. We run 5 mountains, I believe 4 plains, and 4 swamps. Next up, we have a couple of check lands here. So we have the Isolated Chapel, and then the Dragon's Cool Summit. Then we have all 3 of the shock lands from RTR, the RTR block. So we have Blood Crypt, Godless Shrine, and Secret Foundry. And then we just run 1 dual land, which is our bad lands. Next up, we have our fetch lands to help us get our color correction on, because it's very important in the 3-color deck to make sure that you are getting the correct colors when you need them. So we have Bloodstained Mire, Polluted Delta, Windswept Heath, Wooded Foothills, Flooded Strand, Marsh Flats, Verdant Catacombs, and then now we move on to our multicolored lands. For some reason, my phone's orientation has been flipped. So next up, we have our command tower here, because it's the staple in Commander. Next up, we move on to our utility lands. So these next 3 lands are the ones that kind of allow us to get rid of our opponent's pesky lands. So we have Ghost Quarter, Strip Mine, and Wasteland. Next, we have a couple of mana acceleration lands. We have Ancient Tomb and Temple of the False God. Maze of Ith is really great because it saves us from the Voltron commanders, and it also can protect Kaalia in case you swing with Kaalia and you don't want Kaalia to die through combat damage. Command Beacon is here, just so powerful to get Kaalia back into her hand after she's died a couple of times. Hall of the Bandit Lord, it's really great with Kaalia. Get her out, give her haste, win. I've also done it with a couple of other creatures aside from Kaalia. Really nice land. Valras Stronghold to help get our creatures back that have hit the bin. And then Bajuka Bog to hate out other graveyard or graveyard-based decks in general. Next thing we have here are our artifact ramp cards. So we have Lotus Petal, Mana Vault, Soul Ring, Boros Signet, Orzhov Signet, Grim Monolith, Rakdos Signet, Talisman of Indulgence, Thought Vessel is really nice for no maximum hand size, Mindstone, Darksteel Ignite, Chromatic Lantern, Thran Dynamo, and Gilded Lotus. Because this deck tends to go into the late game very often, it's very important that we have a bunch of cards that allow us to play our late game spells. So next up, we have our cheat package with Kaalia here. So we have Karmic Justice, or not Karmic Justice, Karmic's Guide. Karmic Guide, which allows us to kind of reanimate a creature for 5 mana. Baneslayer Angel, it's just really strong. Lifelink is relevant. And not so much the protection from demons and dragons unless we're playing against another Kaalia deck. But it's a big beater for 5. Bloodgift Demon gives us extra card draw. Hellkite Tyrant to take our opponent's artifact ramp. Or if they have a Blightsteel that they've swung at us with and they just happen to not have enough blockers up for this guy, then we can take the Blightsteel. Steel Hellkite is really fun. Allows us to get rid of a non-land permanents that our opponents control that are very pesky, assuming that that opponent doesn't block. Yosai is very great, very nice. It's really good with Kiki Jiki. Resolute Archangel is here mainly for the late game, because we do take a lot of damage, and Kaalia does take a lot of hits as far as things go. Kaalia is hated out very quickly in most multiplayer games. Runescarred Demon, it's a big body with a Demonic Tutor effect. Dragon Mage, once again, another big body with a Wheel of Fortune effect. I like it. It's really good. Gisela, not exactly the strongest card in this deck, but it has saved us in a couple of games where somebody's alpha swinging, and then I just happen to have a sneak attack out in the battlefield, and then play Gisela for 1 at instant speed just to protect myself from dying that turn is pretty good. Lord of the Void is a complete monster. Now, it's very susceptible to Homeward Path, but it's still very great as far as things go. You get to exile at least 6 cards. Angel of Serenity allows us to basically buy back our creatures from the bin. Chroma Angel of Wrath, very nice card. Very strong. I like it. Avacyn Angel of Hope, pretty explanatory. Makes it hard for opponents to board wipe our permanents without exiling them or removing Avacyn first. Iona for a little bit of protection in the later game. It's really great for shutting down Maelstrom Wanderer decks. Solemn Simulacrum, just for a little bit of ramp. Actually, these next cards here are kind of our other cards that we can't cheat in with Kaalia, but we can cheat them in with Sneak Attack or reanimation spells that we have. So, Solemn Simulacrum, typically we will not cheat this guy into play, because he's good for ramp, and he kind of dies very quickly. He's a 2/2 body, but it has 2 really good effects. Kiki Jiki is very nice in this deck, as we do have a lot of juicy creature targets for his ability that are non-legendaries. Ashen Rider, for example, is one of those juicy targets for Kiki Jiki. It's just a very powerful card. Ulamog's Ceaseless Hunger. It's a really nice card. You get to exile 2 permanents if you cast it. But the important part is whenever you swing, you exile the top 20 cards of the defending player's library. Next up, we have Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. It's just pretty much a grave switch for us, and Annihilator 4 is pretty relevant, and drawing 4 cards is nice. Reanimate, or the next few cards we have here are our cheat into play cards here. So we have Reanimate, Animate Dead, Exhume. Typically we'll be running bigger and more powerful creatures than our opponents, so odds are we'll want to play Exhume, or there won't be a bad situation for us to play Exhume. Sneak Attack, mainly the whole deck is based around sneaking creatures into play, so Sneak Attack does the job very well. This deck is probably going to turn into the Nephilim deck that basically cheats creatures from the graveyard into play whenever it attacks, so it'll probably switch to that so we can add another color. Here we have our game accelerant cards to help us get our pieces to assembling our Sneak Attack very quickly. So Faithless Looting, Sensei's Divining Top, Land Tax, really great, pulls out a lot of lands from our deck. Night's Whisper, Wheel of Fortune, Read the Bones, Phyrexian Arena, and then that's it for the drawing aspect. And now we move on to the tutors. So we have Vampire Tutor, Enlightened Tutor, Demonic Tutor, Diabolic Tutor, Increasing Ambition, and that's it. I do plan on putting a Grim Tutor in here later on, so set that aside there. Next up, we have our Protection Package. This just sort of allows us to protect ourselves in the early game, so that we can do some crazy things in the later game. So we have Path to Exile, Swords to Plowshares, Dismember, Ghostly Prison, Anguish Unmaking, Aroas, God of Victory. I found him to be pretty sweet, but we might pull him out for Vindicate. Armageddon, resets everybody, resets us, but once again, if we have Sneak Attack, or Reanimate, Animate Dead, or Exhume, our lands aren't that big of a deal for us. So, Decree of Pain, just a nice card. Yawgmoth's Will to replay cards from our graveyard here that have kind of hit the bin, unfortunately. And then last but not least, Lightning Greaves, just because